I was thinking, somebody was trying to tell me how little DNA it takes to make a human being, and apparently almost none. Almost all the DNA we have consists of what are now called deserts. They have no function at all. But they used to have a function. Before the dinosaurs came, they made creatures. Before there was any difference between us and the insects, they made other creatures. And to begin with, they made blue-green bacteria, which produce all the oxygen that we can breathe. And I think that if in 3,000 million years blue-green bacteria can produce a Mozart or an Isaac Newton, that's not bad going. But our humanity is under attack, and it's under attack from two sources. The first two, those who don't realise that we only have 70 years and 10 to make something of ourselves. But then there are the pseudoscientists as well, who try and reduce everything we do to mathematical formulae. There was a gentleman called Nash who was supposed to have a beautiful mind. And the beautiful mind consists of reducing all human behaviour to mathematical equations. Unfortunately, he then succumbed to paranoid schizophrenia and realised things were not so simple. I'd like to read you a quick quote from one of these horrors, one of Nash's colleagues. "You treat world history as a mathematician does mathematics, in which nothing but laws and formulae exist, no reality, no good and evil, no time, no yesterday, no tomorrow, nothing but an eternal, shallow, mathematical present." So I thought this is how a poet should respond, and I believe we have somebody from BBC Music and Arts who wishes to ask a question.
Who are your role models?
An eclectic bunch of relics and hard to circumnavigate. Sir Thomas Beecham, no, don't ask. Groucho Marx and Harpo. John Stuart Mill and Dr. Johnson. Jonathan Swift alongside Saki. Hogarth, he's in there somewhere. Shaw, Wells, Russell, dash of Blake, Quentin Crispin, Catherine Mansfield. Bugs Bunny, above all, Albert Steptoe.
Kindly give a thumbnail portrait of yourself.
Ooh. A living fossil susceptible to flattery. A cynical and saturnine curmudgeon, an ageing and eccentric bore, a decrepit homunculus, a tortoise steeped in a peat bog, a polyp in the bowel of material production, a senescent blatherer of overheard indiscretions, a gadfly, a grotesque, and not even rococo.
Why do you carry on churning out reams of nonsense?
Because I believe that consciousness is a curse. Because I believe you have to let me make the best of it.
You wasted your youth on philosophy and psychology. Why?
So as to arm me with a lifetime of vaguely ominous platitudes.
You have a certain superficial education. When did you resolve not to be an accountant, a financier?
Oh, let me see. That would be when I read the research showing that economists thought the same way as people with an antisocial personality disorder. The ramifications of game theory, as you call it.
We noted your self-aggrandizing glibness.
Mea culpa, if I'd spotted the gravy train younger, I could have made a flea-sized television pundit for our coffee table classes.
A puddle of self-love being your defining characteristic, was there no place for you as a fashion designer, an executive producer, a celebrity, a sociologist?
Do you know, all of a sudden, I feel quite proud to stick just where I am. There's another one here. People talk about moments of revelation when your life seems to make sense. You know, there's the wonderful poem about Adlestrop, where he's in a train and it stops and he just hears the birds and suddenly all of life makes sense. But what if your own episodes of making sense or revelation just serve to rub in that you see yourself as an outsider? Charles Bukowski once had a marvellous line. He said that there were some people who never went mad. What very boring lives they must lead. So here's one about when I used to just wander about in Islington and Hackney. It's night, when one needs blood, love like blood, and the city is an iceberg of lights. The air throbs, roars like a distant bear. The finger of one's mind in indolence retraces the schema of old streets, their excess of purpose, redundant as antique newsprint. I like to sense this imprint of bustling, forgotten hands, this surfeit of detail in a frosted frieze, or else a silent mausoleum in its zone, with doll's house windows that will not surrender my own reflection. I like it all. As a child, I wore my life like a nettle. I looked out with blistery eyes as if one scourged, not wanting to be found. Of late, I'm more resilient. I watch this house of mine fall dark, I draw it round me. Outside, perhaps, the shed skins of friendships, of issues grown pale, or rather, simply remote. I remember now, this happened one afternoon. There'd been a downpour, briefly the clouds parted, and in a blaze the city shone as if pearl, for a moment as if cleansed, as if life itself had been cleansed, all purged, all forgiven. For a moment I felt glad to share what was soundless, timeless, proud to be there. It is my shame to be different, but I don't know how to live in bad faith. I wish I could walk among the rest, be one of the rest, find my solace in a seamless absurdity, but rather those shackles have slipped away. For me, you see, there is a dissonance in one's heart, if one has purpose, a tension or a null that must be fed. One needs to have some private absurd, some folly dimly grasped, giving one the appetite to carry on. There's nothing left once vision and apathy melt together, resigning one in lean despotic light to be an outsider at life's busy midnight feast. Spare me the sun, this glazed horizon, this eternal present. How frivolous is life if shorn of meaning? How short a life, how long a day? The last one, I was thinking of a wonderful French film which I don't know if anybody of you have seen it. It's called Microcosmos, and it's about life somewhere on a meadow on Earth. And as the camera zooms in, life gets more and more wondrous. But I did spend a few weeks in a geriatric ward, nights as well as days. And there is no dignity at a time where dignity is the only thing to cling to. And the more the camera draws in, the more banal it becomes. And I saw the visitors come and go, and I came to know some of them as if friends. So I called this one He Said, She Said. He arrived in a blue January twilight at this great space, this measureless pavilion, epic and austere. Within it, lost, the murmurings of still beating hearts, microcosms these, as if 1,000 dewdrops where, in a day, seasons of life and death were played out. Intimate, ephemeral, unacknowledged. At the big door, he balked, merely a novice in this cathedral for the dying. One of the sisters glanced, he blanched and lowered his gaze. In upper wards, the television channels prattled. Television by the dead, for the dead. But not down here. Here there was silence without dignity, at a time when dignity was all there was to cling to. Here was a mollusk of metal and puny filament, a reticulated organism perhaps, at whose intersections little gobbets of flesh might move and stir, punctuated from time to time by sacs of brownish fluid. In the corner, with a head like a busted bag, the elegant lady he knew 20 years since from an evening watercolour class. Somebody senile fell back from ranting at an extinct cousin. But first of all, dear reader to bedside watch. There's no response as quiet as a choir boy. He folds his coat and perches on it. At length he says, "Would you like to hear some nice news about me?" Pause and the rattle of distant tea trolleys. Finally she says, "We've been waiting 39 years. At this moment it is evident that prior to all contrary intimations, Elvis has not left the building. As for the seated one, his back makes a low arc, and as if to himself he murmurs, "Now I know you're going to be all right."